It's a tough documentary. Yeah. I cannot hear you. Can you hear me?
I was
Oh,
muted.
now. Sorry. Wonderful. Now I can hear you.
I was struck mute by that clip.
Yes.
But this word that keeps coming back to my mind, just immersive. When we play these pieces of music of yours, whether it's this or Adios or The Good Boss, it's like you're being sucked into another world.
Well, that's what I try, so thank you. Yeah, what I really like about this clip specifically is that, well, many things happen, but one that I think was important for me is that, when at the end we're seeing this person being beaten and a person that is being killed, these images are real. This person was killed. This is a footage from the border. So I just thought like I could not just score it and like pretend we're seeing something that is not real. No, we're seeing somebody beaten to death. So I wanted the voice to be interrupted. I wanted the music to become kind of diegetic. We're hearing it. It's part of the scene. It's not score anymore. Like the music is affected by what's happening, and it doesn't continue. So the first part is like underscore, but at that point it would be other kind of music. I don't know. It's source. It's not even source. I think it's a different kind of music that hasn't been named. But it's like, what if the film can listen to the score? And I think that was what makes it so powerful.
Wow. Do you, with this sequence, did you ever listen to it without the images, just the
Yes,
sound?
yes, of course. This documentary had no references, had no temp score. I built it from scratch. Everything was edited with my music, and I worked very, very closely with the director for many months. So it was a very different process to what you can afford in commercial cinema. We work at different paces. I mean, you need to do a score of many films to make a living. That's the reality of it. And well, at that point, I was well, because I was fighting so much to get into the industry, I had more time, and I devoted all my energy to my works, to the works that came my way, and I was working on this one for a very long time. I don't remember, maybe in total like 9 months or something like that.
And the thing with documentaries is they are all about the editing. They find their story and their voice in the editing. Um, it sounds like you were a part of that process. That you were helping guide the way they were shaping that story. Would that be fair?
Well, we decided together. Let's say we were all collaborators, and we made many decisions together, and we found many things together. Many things we didn't know, like when you start with a documentary, it starts in one place and it follows its own path, and you just also have to find what is the documentary telling you, because sometimes you're forcing it in a direction, and sometimes it's telling you, no, maybe I have this other thing that is really important. So those are the things we try to find when we're doing a documentary. And yes, I mean, we talked a lot. We did like a map, I remember, of light and darkness, of what were the lightest and the darkest parts of the film, and that would help me also scoring. It was a very meticulous process, and of course, here in this clip, the voice is extremely important. It's a singer called Ushia that I really liked, and I made her imitate some instrument, it's a kind of Indian instrument I sampled. So I wanted her to try portray that with her voice, and that's the result, and I really liked it.
I mean, it's so vocally driven. What was? Could you just describe the decision to to set aside 5 minutes of this documentary to this really strong, vocally driven track? And did it fall into the light or the dark, or is it?
It's very
I think.
dark. Yeah, I think probably this was the darkest. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, it's people talking about sometimes suicide, sometimes they don't want to live because the reality is so terrible that while continue living in that way, and people that have been evicted and they don't have a place to live and they don't feel like they have dignity anymore, and many issues that I mean, sometimes you feel they're very removed from you, but they're not so removed from you because I mean, first because the world changes very rapidly, but also because I mean, maybe you don't want to live, and it's the same as somebody that just doesn't want to live because their situation is very very difficult, but it might be for other reasons. And that's what the
Mm.
documentary is talking about. How have we come as a society to accept this, and why are people living like this? Is it necessary? Why is the system so brutal that people need to work 18 hours a day as they do in Japan and as many people do around the world? And well, so many questions that are being raised in this documentary, and this clip is called Death, and for me, it was important to call it like that. Like we're talking about it directly. We're seeing a real death. Let's give it a name.
Right. But did you record the track and then they composed the images around the track, or
No,
what came first?
I, I think I did the mock-up completely, and the mock-up didn't have the voice. It had this Indian instrument that I used, and then I asked this singer, "Can you sing what I have?" But just like so, it sounds improvised, but it's not improvised. It's actually I wanted
Mhm.
exactly those notes, so because that's the main theme. So it does sound very free, but it wasn't free. So, and then I also, once she gave me the recording, of course, I chose the best parts of what she had done, but it's very similar to what I had mocked up, but with a voice, because I felt it really needed this human aspect, somebody
Mm.
giving their heart and soul. I didn't think we would achieve it just with instruments. I think the voice is something even greater than an instrument.
And what was the Indian instrument that the voice is replicating?
I don't remember what it's called. It's like I'm not sure if it's called santur or something like that. It's a stringed instrument that you play with bow, and yeah, it was just I just liked the I don't know something. There was something in the quality that did maybe that it was about to cry. There's these instruments that have
Yeah.
this thing that I like, and I thought she could imitate that, and she did.
Well, it's beautiful and it's remarkable. And at the risk of a slight digression, have you come across a film called an Indian film called The Disciple?
No.
It's was released last year. It's on Netflix. A remarkable film about a sitar student uh,
Wow.
who devotes his whole life to playing sitar and has a guru, and it's a bit like your Muerte track. It's got this hypnotic. It's an exploration of life, and it's got this and of failure and of deep failure. But it has this incredible hypnotic quality to it. It's an incredible film,
Wow.
and a great film
Well,
for
I'd love
music
to see.
lovers.
Yeah, I'll
So
see.
we are now going to go to something completely different, and this is a great lesson for all film music students out there. Is keep yourself loose, keep yourself very, very capable across the genres. We're now going to go to a children's animation that you did called Nutcrackers, which was early in your career. It's interesting to hear you talk about the early part of your career in context of delicate balance. And this is as different to Delicate Balance as you could ever get.
I haven't lost anything. I'm down here.
Oh, what a fright you gave me.
Come on, now we've got to get into the train quickly before we get down to the tunnel.
Why? What's the matter with the tunnel?
You'll see, you're gonna love it. We have to climb up on the roof. There's a trapdoor on the second carriage that we can climb into. Come on! Come on, hurry up! Oh! Watch out! Duck down!
Roller coaster, fantastic! Uh-oh.
Wow.
Talk us through this one, Zeltia.
So many different musical styles in such a short space, which is really difficult. I mean, I love what I did in that film, but honestly, I would think twice about doing another animation. It was so hard because it's very difficult because mostly what you're seeing is very simple animation, so everything is in the music. And also, it was an animation movie. I think it was for ages 3 to 7. So those very small children. So I wanted to do a score that didn't just use like regular, very simple harmony. I used very complex and very advanced harmony. Now that I heard it, I was like, wow, I've never used those kind of transitions in such a long time. So I think it's great to not underestimate what children should hear because we are creating the listeners of the future. And if these children listen to this when they were 3, what will they be open to listen when they're 18? So I think this is very important. That was one of the things I wanted to do. And then I go through many different styles, and it starts with something that's pop, and then it moves to this magical world with choir, and then it moves the end this kind of I don't know, reggae style or something. There is a bit of everything, and it was very hard to do. I remember I had a very hard time, but now, like, it was my second film. Now that I look back, I'm like, it was really hard. I understand why had such a hard time. It would be very hard for me today to do it.
So you, after the conservatory in Spain, you then went to Berkeley School of Music in America and trained there, and then and you have a lot of ties and links in LA. Did you, although this is a Spanish film, did you do this on returning to Spain, or was this something you did in America in terms of the music?
This one I did when I returned to Spain. Actually, I was living at that moment in Barcelona. I lived there for a year, and that was when I was scoring this film. And it was a very big project for a young composer. It's a full choir and the orchestra was recorded actually in Kiev. And sorry, I think there's something sounding here. I think the headphones. Anyway, there's something. So it was a very big scope project. That I mean, now I feel I'm very happy to have done it so early. I learned so much from it, but maybe you should start a little bit with something a little bit easier, because you can get very frustrated if you get something that's so difficult to start with.
Yeah. Because we all think, oh, children's animation, it's childlike, it's simple. But as you've just been describing, it's really, really complicated. And I love what you're saying about creating something that can inspire young people, even at that early age, to connect with music in a really sophisticated way. Could you just talk a little bit about, this is your second film, talk about that process of, because I think it'd be very valuable for our students listening, of leaving music school and entering the industry, and just the challenges, how you overcame the challenges, the good things, and any pieces, anything, piece of advice that you might want to give.
And that's very hard for me to do, because, of course, in retrospect, you think things differently than when you were there trying. At that point, it was very hard for me, because films were like, workflow was very slow. So I did give my everything in every work. I did put a lot of effort, a lot of time. I didn't sleep for years. I'm still not sleeping, but, but it's getting slightly better. The hardest part is to get work. And so I thought, I mean, if I do a really good job in everything I get, well, hopefully that will bring me more work. People will notice. But these films were very small. Very few people saw them, so it was hard to start to make a living and to find enough work to keep it stable, and that took at least 10 years. So yeah, you do have to have a lot of patience and luck and so many things, but of course you have to work very, very hard. And what I am happy about it is that I was very creative, and I was I don't know, I was open, and I was felt like my language could fit these films, whereas now I feel the industry is much more constrained and they want this particular thing. And because I had that freedom early in my career, I think I look at it in a different way. Okay, I can be close to the temp, but I'm still gonna do things that I think are more personal. And that I also, because there is something that I do feel about making scores that are so similar, is that when you're doing something that is very similar to this other film, you're just gonna achieve a more diluted emotion of what that film achieved, and this goes diluting and diluting along the chain. So if you really want a strong impact, you can only achieve that through something that's original, that's something that's unique to that. And this is something many directors don't understand. They think that by copying this other masterpiece or whatever, you're going to achieve that, and you're just going to achieve something that's less than that. So why not try something different? Maybe it's not the exact emotion you wanted, but it's something that they haven't perceived in that way before. And I mean, I love to work with brave directors, but that's also something you don't choose. Directors that choose you, and some are braver than others. But yeah, I would encourage composers to be brave.
Yeah. You've just described a continual fight for originality.
It's everywhere, yeah.
Um, I mean, based on other people we've spoken to, whether it's Tom and Andy or Ruth Barrett or Daniel Pemberton, 10 years sounds about right for everyone um, to,
Yeah.
to break in there and do their early work. It's almost could be a rule.
Well, it makes me feel better because I've always thought my career was extremely slow. Maybe because it felt that way. So maybe it wasn't that bad.
How did you find, you were trained in America and you won the Jerry Goldsmith Award several times and you were trained in a very American context. How did you find it returning to Spain and going back into the Spanish industry or going into the Spanish industry?
Well, there's many things about that. First, maybe I would describe what it was for me to move to the US, coming from the Spanish conservatory system, which was very, very different. I wasn't happy at all in the Spanish conservatory system. Based mostly on what you're not doing well. That's how they educate you. And so there was a point where I was starting to lose the love for music. So I have a lot to thank to American education in a way because they have many good and bad things, but they have something that worked really well for me and is encouragement. It was the first time ever I was told, this is incredible, you have to record this. I was like, the first time a teacher told me that, I was like, they must be joking. This has never happened to me. Nobody has ever told me this. And it worked really well for me. I needed encouragement. And it's not bad to need encouragement. There is a point where you can feel you're good all your life, but there is a point where you need somebody else to tell you. And that is what I got mostly from Berkeley. I started to believe in myself. I mean, of course, if I was 22 years in the conservatory in an environment where I was being told I wasn't good and I still did it for 18 years, then it meant that I did believe in myself. But there is a point that the battery starts ending and you need something else. And also that's what I feel has happened in my career. Now I'm very tired because I've been working a lot for the past 3-4 years or maybe more. Maybe the last 10 years have been extremely busy. But now, although I'm very tired and I would love to have a vacation, I think because my career is going slightly better, because I'm working with directors that really value what I bring in. And so I feel that is feeding me. And that is what you don't have at the beginning of your career, and that is very difficult. And that is why many artists quit, I think, because there is a point where you can think you're good, but it's not showing in money-wise, it's not showing like peer-wise, it's not showing. You need to see it somewhere, and you need to feel that you're being valued. And this is what takes a very long time, I think, in film scoring.
Now, this is important, and this may be very difficult for you to express, but I think it would be very valuable for all our viewers to hear just what your mechanisms were in those first 10 years. And I felt the same. We all feel this creatively, the questioning moments, because it would be let's put it this way, it would be a tragedy to film scoring if you had quit. We wouldn't have Muerte, we wouldn't have Adios, we wouldn't have some extraordinary pieces of work. So could you just describe in those difficult early years, and we all have them, or people watching are going to have them, what your mechanisms were to kind of just grind through and overcome?
Well, first of all, you're so nice. Thank you. I don't know. I've wanted to quit many times, and I think, it's not so bad to want to quit. It's natural in this kind of professions. It's very difficult to make a living, and it requires all of your energy and all of your time. And many people along the way are going to tell you, just teach or get a normal job. Why don't you do that? And and you think about it many times, and sometimes I still think about it. But I mean, I think when it starts to go slightly better, you start seeing more of the benefits of this kind of life. But it is a life of big sacrifice. It's as if you were an athlete, or I mean, you have to be doing this as if you were going to the Olympics. And you have to train every day, which in our case is sitting down and trying, and many times you for me the biggest leap is sitting sitting at the computer, at the piano, and trying things. That's very hard. I'm especially afraid of starting a score. Like when I start a score, I feel like I'm dying. Like it's the end of the world. It's the worst feeling. I would rather do anything else in my life than start a score. Once the score is going and once it's working and when I feel the director is happy, then I start breathing a little bit, and well, it goes until you get to the recording, and well, there's so many things that happen along the way, but that's where like that leap of faith is very difficult, and it's very scary, and it still is today. So that I don't think gets better. So you just have to get accustomed. And what you were feeling of, like, what you were saying about how to in the beginning of your career, how to stay believing in yourself. I really don't know. I think you have to have something internal that's really strong that I cannot describe, that is telling you just keep doing it even if it's so hard. But it's cost me my whole life. I mean, I barely have free time. There's a lot of things that are not as nice as what you see when you see a film, or when you see the achievements of somebody. You don't know what personal cost it has to them, and for me the personal cost has been very high, and that's something that I think just people should know, because it's the reality.
Well, that is admirably honest of you, and I think it's important for people to know that there is no clear-cut answer to this. You have to believe in what you're doing. And on that note, what I'd like to do now, I find one of the things that keeps me going through the dark times is to remember things like Ecstasy of Gold, the reason why I'm here in the first place. So I'd like to play one of your inspirations, and then after that we're going to go into some questions from the students.
Okay.
And what a great inspiration this is.
Exia Deo, et mundi spiritus et ad locum Spiritui Sancto Paraclita. Oremus, Regius nostus, per Christum Domine nostrum. Amen. Michael, Crucis Domine in impressiones signatum, od magnitudines gloria Tua rudimenta servans, per custodia mandatorum Tuorum, ad regenerationes gloriam pervenire meriatum, per creendum Christum Dominum nostrum. Amen. Oremus, omnipotens sempiterne Deus, Pater Domini nostri Iesu Christi respice dignatus super hanc fambulum tuum, Michael, qui venturus est judicari vivus et mortus in saeculum perennium. Amen. Michael, accipe sal sapiense propitiasse sit tibi in vitam aeternam. Amen. Deus omnipotens Pater Domini nostri Iesu Christi, qui Dei regenerabile sacque Spiritus Sancto, qui de tebi tibi remissione omnium peccatorum, iste te lineat Chrisma te salutis in eiodum Christo Iesu Domine nostrum, in vitam aeternam. Amen. Ego te linea oleo salutis in Christo Iesu Domine nostrum, rabias vitam aeternam. Amen. Credes in Spiritus Sanctum, Sanctam Ecclesiam Catholicam, Sanctorum Communionem Remissionem Peccatorum, carnes resurrectionem et vitam aeternam, credo. Exorcisse te mundi spiritus in nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti. Ut exias et recedes ab hoc famulum Dei Michaeli, isienem tibi impere maledictit damnata. Effeta quores ad aperire, et dona suavitatis, tuatum effulgar diabli apocum guabeneum judicium Dei. Michael, do you believe in God, the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth?
I do.
Do you believe in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord?
I do.
Do you believe in the Holy Ghost, the Holy Catholic Church?
I do.
Pater noster qui es in caelo, sanctificetur nomen tuum, adveniat regnum tuum, fiat voluntas tua sicut in cielo et in terra. Panem nostrum quotidianum da nobis hodie, et dimitte nobis debita nostrum, sicut in nos dimitibus debitoribus nostris, et ne nos inducas in tentationem, sed libera nos a malo. Amen. Michael, ingredere in templum Dei, ut habeas patem cum Christo in vitam aeternam. Amen. Credo in Deo Pater omnipotentem, creatorem caeli et terra, et in Iesum Christum Filii eius unigenitum Dominum nostrum, qui conceptus est Spiritus Sancto, natus ex Maria Virgin, passus sub Pontius Pilatus, crucifixus mortus et sepultus, descender ad inferos, tertia die resurrexere ad mortis, ascender ad caelos, sedere ad dextra Dei Patris omnipotentem, inde venturis est judicare vivus et mortus, credo in Spiritus Sancto, Sanctam Ecclesiam Catholicam, Sanctorum Communionem, Remissionem Peccatorum, Canus Resurrectionem, Vitam Aeternam. Amen. Michael Francis Rizzi, do you renounce Satan?
I do renounce him.
And all his works?
I do renounce them.
And all his pomps?
I do renounce them.
Michael Rizzi, will you be baptized?
I will.
In nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti. Michael Rizzi, go in peace, and may the Lord be with you. Amen.
You know, normally we do our influences at the start of these shows, but there's something about everything you've talked about up to now and what that remarkable piece of work does, which is its voice, its music, its imagery. It's so and we've seen reflections in your work of this, and also what you were saying just a moment ago. Those moments where you feel terrible, you want to give up. It's remembering things like this, like maybe one day I'll be able to do something like that.
For sure, yeah. I love that scene. I think it's impeccable in so many ways. I could talk about it for hours. There's so many things that I find remarkable, and also in just in the volume, how it's used, and it's even louder outside than inside. There's so many things that he's taking into account to make this so powerful. And of course, the editing is going a lot with the music. How can an organ piece like this, which is actually, I think it's two different pieces from Bach, and then they did some recording on top of some of the bass. It's like very strange harmonies. They are adding another layer to these Bach pieces, and I just found it's fascinating in the construction. It becomes the scariest music ever, and you're seeing this baptism, I don't know. There's so many things why I think it's, and I think the main reason why I think it's so good is because the music is taken so much into account into how to construct what he wants. And this is what we love as film composers.
Yeah. And the way the music builds to that final, the renunciations and the assassinations, it's what you said earlier. It's at the very start. It gets beyond explanation. It just is.
Yes, I think that scene, anybody would understand it without knowing how the music works.
Right, well, we have a question for you from one of our students now. So let's bring that on. Hello.
Hi.
We have Agustin here. Would you like to introduce yourself, Agustin?
I cannot hear him.
Student.
Oh, no.
Let's try that again.
muted.
Augustine, please introduce yourself, Augustine.
Yeah. I'm Agustin Alonso. I'm a UNT graduate student. I'm studying composition with an emphasis on film music. Hi, Saltia. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Hi.
I very much enjoyed watching the clips, and your music and all of these were absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, on many of the scenes we saw today, there were monologues, which were maybe perhaps the most important part of the scene. But the music also played a very important role in evoking a certain feeling. As an aspiring film composer myself, many times I can't help to focus on the music in a conscious way. Could you tell us how do you approach writing music that's interesting enough, but that doesn't intrude with the main voice of the film?
That's really important because really our job is to make the dialogue be heard very well and be very well understood. So I take very much into account the dialogue. I do mark exactly where it appears, every phrase. I do mark the moments I want to make something different because of what he's saying. I do have a lot into account the pitch and the sound and what instruments can work well with that voice. Also the instrumentation that can help that scene. You really have to score as if like having every element into account, the sound design too, but especially the dialogue and especially in monologues. Yes. So just my advice would be to really have that in mind and to compose with that, not against that.
That's great. That's helpful. Thanks.
And I guess you've been, as we alluded to earlier, you've been lucky enough to work with actors like Javier and Pedro, who've got very, very distinct voices.
Yes, but with any actor, you have to really take into account where in the spectrum their pitch is and what kind of sound their voice has, because sometimes you can interfere a lot, or if you choose well your instrumentation, you can interfere less. So it is very important to take it into account.
And is that something, are you watching like the dailies or the assemblies to get a sense of the actor's vocal performance?
Sometimes, yes, when I start earlier, yes. And when I don't have it until the first cut, well, I hear it when I start composing. But yes, it's very important.
Okay, we have one more question for you from...
I'm going to present this one, Zeltia, from the student perspective, and this is something that many students come to me as they're aspiring to make their way into the industry and develop their skills, develop their voice. Many of them feel a little bit confused about how do I cultivate my skills to be versatile, but then at the same time I want to be original. I'm told that I need to be able to do a lot of different kinds of things, but then I also need to draw attention to myself. And so I find that students often they're not sure how to balance those two things in regard to their role as composers, supporting the work in a versatile way, but then creating their own voice. Could you speak to that from a young aspiring composer's perspective?
Well, I'm gonna give some advice that somebody told me at a moment where I was doubting and I thought about teaching. So this person that was actually going to hire me told me, "What do you think? What do you think you need this? What do you think is wrong with your music?" Or so, and I don't know exactly how it was, but I remember I was talking about the things that I thought I didn't have in my music, and he said, "Well, there's so many things you do have. Why concentrate on the ones you don't have?" And I thought it was great advice, and that's part of what makes you original, like loving also what you're not good at, like loving the darkest parts and the most illuminated parts, and accepting where you are. That doesn't mean that, of course, if you're bad at big band writing or whatever and you think you're gonna need it, well, maybe you should also learn that. But I think it is more important to know what your strengths are and really fight to show your strengths as much as possible. And of course, then, if you can be like an extremely complete composer, that's what we would all love. But I mean, we are human and we are good at what we are. And maybe if I really tried to be a very different composer to who I naturally am, it would be going against me, because maybe there are so many other composers that are really good at that and I'm good at something else. So, I mean, it's a bit knowing what you love and what you're good at, and accepting that.
That's great advice. Thank you.
Thank you.
So know yourself.
I guess it takes time.
It does.
And a lot of love towards yourself. Yeah.
That's why 10 years is probably the time it takes you at least to get to that state. And, you know.
Yes, that's why I feel life is too short, because I don't know, when we start being good, maybe we're at 80 or something.
Well, yes, that's one of the quirks of life.
Yeah.
You only feel you feel it, and then your time is up.
I guess.
That's been a fantastic conversation, Zeltia. And thank you for being so honest and open, as well as creating beautiful music.
Well, thank you for allowing me the space.
I'd like to end. As an inspiration for everyone watching this, we'd just like to show you a little bit of your acceptance speech at the Goyas, how we first began this interview, because I think it's something that I would like people to take away from having watched you.
Okay.
Quiero agradecer también, por supuesto, a Fernando León. Lo difícil para una compositora es que te den la oportunidad y que además confíen en ti y confíen en tu criterio. Quiero agradecer a mi equipo, a Joan Martorell y a Alfredo Jiménez. Quiero dedicárselo a todos los españoles en Los Ángeles, que han sido como hermanos para mí, a todos los españoles que alguna vez tienen que emigrar para perseguir sus sueños una y otra vez. La historia de la música no ha sido muy agradecida con las compositoras, tampoco lo ha sido la historia del cine. Y lo que las compositoras no han tenido ha sido oportunidad. Esta oportunidad que yo he tenido se la dedico a todas las mujeres que cada día no se acuestan por las noches componiendo música.
It's still hard for me to watch myself.
Well, I'd encourage people to watch the rest of the speech. It's a very powerful speech, but of course, this is an industry where women are woefully underrepresented, even now. Something that we've had discussion about on other episodes. Do you see that now changing with people like you, not just doing well but being recognized?
I do think it's changing. Of course, we're not quite there yet, but it's getting better. I feel optimistic, and I do feel, what I think is most important, I think, is that people are understanding what's been happening, and many people are really wanting to make a genuine change, and that's something, of course, I feel grateful for.
Well, I think seeing your story, and of course, from your perspective, it took you forever to get there. From other people's perspective, you've got to where you are really fast. Believe it or not.
I'm still not even there, but
you won a Spanish Academy Award. The only thing left is a American Academy
Award. Money.
But,
the only thing left is money.
And to see also the range of genres that you've worked in, and going back to Drew's question, the way in which, whether it's the Nutcrackers, whether it's children's animation, or whether it's kind of hard action thriller, there's still a very distinct voice there, very distinct.
Thank you. I'm proud of that.
And I think, as you have been very, very blunt and honest in saying, it's not easy. It's a tough journey. People should not be under any illusions about the journey that they're going on. But to see that you've made it, I would hope will inspire a lot of other people to carry on this journey.
I hope so.
Okay, one last question. What do you see the future of music and moving image being as we enter a world of AI and everything else?
I mean, of course, it's hard to know. I do hope music becomes even more of an immersive experience. Many times I've thought I would love to, and I think it's like the technology is right there now to do this more in a way. Many times when I was mixing, one of the things I like most in the world is to mix a score. I'm very, very picky with mixes, and when I mix that, many times I feel like, how would it feel if we went close to the violins? How would we feel if we went close to the brass guitar, if we walked around them? So I think there's so much more still to experience in a mix that is changing live, that as we walk we're hearing some things, and there's so much that can be experimented still in the way we experiment music. But of course, what I feel hopeful about is, even though I feel the music industry is in a very bad state for musicians, it's very hard, but what hasn't gotten old is what music makes you feel, and that is something that happens immediately, and that's so powerful that it can't be taken away from the creators. So that gives me hope. At least they won't be able to take that away from us.
Well, to quote you, back at yourself, when in doubt, be music.
Yes. I say it to myself sometimes. We need some humor in life.
If you want to check out that quote and more, go onto Zeltia's Instagram page, follow her, watch her films. You can see Sad Hill Unearthed on Netflix. You can see Silence of the Marsh on Netflix. Good Boss will be coming to the States and to Britain this year, no doubt. And Zeltia, I just want to thank you from all of us for a fantastic discussion. And thank you for your honesty as well as your talent.
Thank you too for your such wonderful treatment. Thank you.
Great.
Wow. That was amazing. Zeltia, she's just such an extraordinary talent, Ollie, and the work speaks for itself. I kept thinking during your discussion back to the second episode, the interview you did with Andy Milburn, and how he talked about he doesn't like to refer to himself as a composer. He refers to himself as a filmmaker. You remember this comment, and I just kept thinking that over and over again as Zeltia was talking about and expressing her sensitivity to the vocal delivery of the actors, the cinematography, and the movement of the camera. She's just so dialed into so many different aspects of the filmmaking, and it's just such a great thing for our students to be able to bear witness to that well-rounded sensitivity. I'm sure you appreciate that as a director.
Totally. And rewatching these clips, just that immersive experience of her music. And I would encourage everyone, go on Spotify. A lot of her music is available on Spotify. Just sit down with a glass of wine or whatever, if you're in LA, it's legal now. Have a spliff, run a bath, listen to her scores. Just lose yourself in that music, because even beyond the moving image, it's profoundly immersive, beautiful, beautiful stuff.
Absolutely. What a great couple of hours. And thank you so much, Zeltia. We really appreciate it here from the University of North Texas. Ollie, we've got some really great conversations planned in the episodes to come. Do you want to talk about next month?
Yeah. So next month we are going into completely different territory. We are interviewing Tyler Bates, who is one of the biggest Hollywood composers at work today. His films have made, I think, $5 billion. And we're going to go right into the heart of the modern Hollywood tentpole universe franchise industry. He's done Guardians of the Galaxy. He's done the John Wick franchise. He has got long-running, deep relationships with filmmakers like Tom Gunn, Zack Snyder, the director of John Wick, whose name I'm blanking right now. But he also is a very, very committed artist. He's a rock and roller in the original sense. He's just coming off tour with Jerry Cantrell right now. He's done lots of TV, Californication, The Punisher, and he also had a side project called DC Dark Knight's Death Metal, which he developed and evolved throughout lockdown. Extraordinary guy. It's going to be a fascinating discussion of the modern Hollywood film scoring business. And if there's any inflection of what Zeltia had to say, it's going to be a big discussion of how within that you bring your personality to that as well. But he's been brilliant at that.
Awesome. It's going to be great. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. And we'll see you next month. Take care.
Yeah.
Cheers, Ollie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zeltia. Oh yeah, let's one more thank you to Zeltia Montes. Wonderful.
Thank you,
discussion.
Zeltia.
Okay, bye everybody.